My name is Claire Bennett, and I'm 32 years old. A few months ago, I would have told you my life was busy, but good. Solid job, decent apartment, boyfriend who made me laugh more often than he made me cry. I thought we were moving toward something, maybe a ring, maybe a starter home, maybe a future that felt like ours. Instead, I'm the woman who bought a house by Christmas, just like my boyfriend demanded, and moved into it alone. Ryan and I had been together for 2 years. He's 29, works in marketing, all easy charm and big ideas. I'm a software developer. I make more money, so we split rent on my apartment 60-40. It felt fair and grown up. He used to brag about how his genius girlfriend was killing it in tech. The first year was great. Weekend trips, Netflix and takeout, jokes about whose turn it was to do dishes. Then his college roommate bought a house with his fiancée, and suddenly every conversation in our relationship came with a price per square foot. "Did you see Ethan and Mariah closed on that place in Brookfield?" he asked one night, scrolling through photos while we brushed our teeth. "Good for them," I said. "Renting is just throwing money away," he added, like it was a neutral observation. At first, I agreed in theory. I'd been saving for years, automatic transfers, color-coded spreadsheets, slow discipline. A house was on my list. I just didn't think it had to be on a timer. But after that, the topic never went away. "Look at this one," Ryan would say, shoving his phone toward me while we waited for coffee. 3 bedrooms, big yard. We could totally do this. "We could," I'd answer, if we both wanted to change our budgets and make an actual plan. He'd kiss my cheek and ignore the part about both. Zillow links started arriving in the middle of my workday. At night, he scrolled Pinterest, mumbling about our future master suite. Anytime I brought up joint savings, his face would tighten, like I'd insulted him. "You make good money, Claire," he said once, his head in my lap, eyes on his phone. "You're literally throwing it away on rent." "I'm also paying off loans and maxing my 401k, I reminded him. "That's part of building a future, too." He just hummed, already back to scrolling. The ultimatum arrived over pot roast. We were at his parents' house. His mom, Linda, had cooked. His dad, Mark, was asking about the computer stuff I did. His younger sister, Sophie, was half watching something on her phone and half listening to the conversation. It felt warm and familiar. I liked his family. I liked feeling like I belonged at that table. Then Linda set her fork down and smiled at us. "So," she said, "when are you two going to get serious?" Before I could answer, Ryan did. "Well, Mom," he said, grinning, "I told Claire if she doesn't buy us a house by Christmas, I'm done." The room went quiet. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. Mark's smile faltered. Sophie's head snapped up. Linda's eyes went wide. "Ryan," I said slowly, "what did you just say?" He laughed, like he'd said something cute. "Come on, babe, don't act surprised. I've been patient. 2 years is long enough. You make great money. If you're serious about building a future with me, I need to know. A house means commitment, security." Sophie jumped in. "Honestly, he's right. My friend's boyfriend bought them a condo after, a year. If someone really wants a future, they step up." I looked at Ryan, really looked at him. He sat there relaxed, arm along the back of my chair, confident he was being reasonable. "This is news to me," I said. He rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on, I've been dropping hints forever. The Zillow links, the neighborhood talks, that Pinterest board called Our Dream House, those were hints." "Hints about an ultimatum?" I asked. "In front of your family?" "Don't act stupid, Claire," he said lightly, an edge under the words. "It's obvious what I want, what anyone our age wants. A home. Stability. You buying a house for us is just the logical next step." Everyone was watching me, waiting for me to agree or prove I was the selfish one. My heart hammered. I knew exactly what was happening. I was being pushed into a corner where saying no meant I didn't love him enough to hand over my savings. Except that wasn't true. I set my fork down, smoothed my napkin, and met his eyes. "Okay," I said, "challenge accepted." His whole face lit up. He pulled me into a hug. Linda wiped away a tear. Sophie grabbed her phone, already opening real estate apps. "This is so exciting," Linda said. "We can help you look. There's this adorable cul-de-sac." I smiled and nodded and let the conversation roll over me. On the outside, I was the supportive girlfriend who had finally come around. On the inside, something fundamental had snapped. Here's what none of them knew. I'd already been house hunting for months. Not for us, for me. In the version of the future I'd pictured, I'd thought about proposing the idea of us living together after we talked about money, goals, timelines. Maybe a ring later, after we were on the same page. We'd pick a place together, as partners. But that public ultimatum? Him announcing my financial responsibilities like I was a walking down payment? That killed whatever future I'd imagined. The next morning, I called my realtor. Her name is Hannah, but in my phone she's just Hannah Yoga, in case Ryan ever got nosy. "Tell me you're finally ready," she said when she picked up. "I'm ready," I said. "Is that 3-bedroom ranch we saw still available?" "Last I checked, yes. Want to see it again?" I pictured the light in the living room, the quiet street, the ugly wallpaper I could rip down myself. "No," I said. "I want to move fast, and I need something specific on the paperwork." 2 weeks later, just before Christmas, we closed. On paper, the house isn't mine. It's my mom's. Legally, it's entirely in her name. I gave her the down payment as a documented gift. She took out the mortgage with me as co-signer. Every record says I'm her tenant. When I sat at her kitchen table and explained everything, Ryan's deadline, the dinner, the way he talked about my money like it already belonged to him, she listened quietly. "So he told you to buy him a house?" she said finally, eyebrows raised. "He said to buy us a house," I replied. "But yeah, he's never offered to contribute a cent. He just expects me to empty my savings and hand him half a house." Mom snorted. "I didn't raise you to anybody's ATM, Claire." Some of the tightness in my chest eased. "So you're okay with this?" "I'm thrilled," she said. "Put it in my name. We'll do it right. If he ever tries anything, he can argue with me and a stack of paperwork. I like our odds." A week before Christmas, I was fully moved in. My mattress lay on the floor, boxes lined the hallway, and a tiny, crooked Christmas tree from the grocery store blinked in the corner of the living room. The place smelled like paint and cardboard, and something that felt suspiciously like freedom. Ryan thought I was still just looking. He kept texting me listings, each house bigger and more expensive than the last, none of them accompanied by any mention of his savings. 3 days before Christmas, my phone buzzed while I was wrestling with an IKEA bookshelf. "Babe, when are we going to see places? Christmas is literally in 3 days." I stared at the message, then looked around at the half-finished room that was already starting to feel like mine. I wiped dust off my hands and typed, "Actually, I bought a house, moving in now. You should come see it." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, reappeared. "Are you serious?" he finally wrote. "OMG, send the address. I'm coming over." I sent it, feeling my pulse steady instead of spike. "You're going to love it here," I thought. "Just not the way you think." He showed up half an hour early with a U-Haul. I watched it through the front window, the big white truck rumbling to a stop in front of the house. For a second, I actually thought he'd parked at the wrong address. Then I saw him hop out of the driver's seat, all energy and excitement, in a hoodie and beanie, grinning like he'd just won something. The passenger door opened, and one of his buddies climbed out, stretching. There were words spray-painted on the side of the cardboard boxes I could see through the windshield. Kitchen, fragile. Bedroom stuff, gaming. I closed my eyes for one long, steady breath. Of course he rented a whole U-Haul without asking me a single question. The doorbell chimed. I opened the door, leaving the chain latched. Ryan's face lit up. "Babe," he exclaimed, "you actually did it. Oh my God, this place is so cute." He tried to push the door wider, but the chain caught. "Hey," I said, "hold on." He frowned. "Claire, come on, it's freezing. Let us in." He smelled like coffee and cold air and a future he thought he already owned. I unlatched the chain and opened the door enough for him to step into the entryway. His friend hovered on the porch, hands stuffed into his pockets, doing that awkward smile people do when they know they're intruding and don't care. Ryan gave a quick, distracted kiss to my cheek and started to edge past me with a box labeled Kitchen, Fragile. I put a hand on his chest. "Stop!" He laughed, assuming I was teasing. "You're not really going to make me stand here and do the whole carry you over the threshold thing, are you? We can do that later." "You're not moving in, Ryan." The words came out calm, too calm. He blinked. "What?" "This isn't your move-in day," I said, "because you're not moving in." He stared at me like I'd just spoken another language. Then he looked over his shoulder at his friend, like maybe this was a prank they were both missing. "Okay, funny," he said. "Seriously, though, where do you want the boxes? Kitchen? Living room?" "Back in the truck," I said. "You need to take them back to wherever you actually live." He stopped smiling. "Claire, come on." I stepped back so he could see more of the hallway. Bare walls, my boxes, my half-built bookshelf, my little crooked Christmas tree still glowing in the corner. One couch, one TV stand, one life. "Ryan," I said quietly, "this is my house, not our house, mine." Something ugly flickered across his face. "What are you talking about? You said challenge accepted." "I did," I said. "You told me to buy you a house by Christmas or you were done. I bought a house by Christmas. I just never said you were moving in." His friend gave a low whistle and suddenly found a very interesting spot on the porch railing to stare at. Ryan glanced between me and the interior of the house like this was some kind of escape room puzzle. "You're joking," he said. "Claire, we've been together 2 years. You make great money. You bought this house for us." "No," I said. "I bought this house for me." His jaw clenched. He took a step further in. "Okay, we can argue about semantics later. The U-Haul's not free. We gotta start unloading. Where's our bedroom?" "Ryan," I repeated, steel creeping into my voice, "you are not moving into this house." He was about to say something else when a car pulled into the driveway. My mom's gray sedan. She parked behind the U-Haul, got out, straightened her coat, and walked up with a folder tucked under her arm. "Perfect timing," I murmured. Ryan squinted through the doorway. "Is that your mom?" Mom gave him a warm, polite smile as she stepped up to the porch. "You must be Ryan," she said. "We've heard so much about you." He tried to rearrange his expression into something charming. "Hi, Ms. Bennett. Great to finally meet you in person." She nodded, then turned to me. "Do you want to do this inside or out here?" "Out's fine for now," I said. Ryan glanced between us, confusion turning slowly into suspicion. "Do what, exactly?" Mom shifted the folder in her hands. "Introduce myself properly," she said. "I'm the homeowner." It took a second for that to land. "The homeowner." Ryan blinked. I'm sorry, what?" "This is my house," Mom repeated pleasantly. "Claire's renting from me." Ryan laughed once, too loud. "Okay, that's not funny." Mom's smile didn't change. "I'm not joking, sweetheart." He looked at me, waiting for me to contradict her. I didn't. "I gave my mom the down payment as a gift," I said. "The mortgage is in her name. I co-signed. Legally, this is her property. I'm her tenant." The color drained from his face, then came back twice as red. "You're kidding," he said. "Claire, tell me you're kidding." "I'm not," I said softly. His voice rose. "So you bought a house with your mom, put nothing in my name, and what? You expect me to beg you to put me on the deed?" "No," I said. "I expect you to realize that you demanded a house I paid for alone and assumed you'd get equity in something you didn't contribute to." He flung an arm toward the truck. "I contributed my time, my support. I've invested 2 years into this relationship." Mom sighed under her breath. "Here we go," she muttered. Ryan heard that. His head snapped toward her. "Excuse me?" She kept her tone even. "If you're looking to rent a room," she said, "I'd need to run a credit check and get references. First month, last month, and a security deposit. Do you have proof of income with you?" His friend choked on a laugh, then pretended to cough. Ryan stared at her, speechless for a beat, then looked back at me as if I'd orchestrated some elaborate betrayal. "This is insane," he said. "You can't seriously think I'm going to pay rent to live in a house my girlfriend bought." "That's the point," I said quietly. "It's not your house. It's not our house. It's my mom's house that I'm renting. You have no automatic claim to it. You never even asked how much I'd saved, never once offered to put anything down with me." "That's what men do," he snapped. "They provide. I thought you were okay being the provider. You've said it yourself. You love being independent." "I love being independent," I agreed. "I don't love being used." The words hung there, solid and unforgiving. His eyes flashed. "Used? Are you serious right now? I've supported you emotionally. I've been there for you. That has value." "It does," I said. "But emotional support doesn't entitle you to half a house I paid for. If we'd talked about joint savings, if you'd said, 'Let's plan this together, I'll put in X, you put in Y,' that would have been different." He shook his head. "That's not how it works. When a guy makes more money, he buys his girlfriend a house. No one expects her to pay for half." "Then maybe you should date a rich guy," I said before I could stop myself. Mom exhaled sharply, almost a laugh. Ryan went very, very still. "So that's how it is?" he asked. "You think I'm some kind of gold digger?" "I think," I said, forcing my voice to stay level, "that you issued a public ultimatum about my money without ever offering to be a partner in the process. You didn't say, 'Let's build something together.' You said, 'Buy me a house.'" His hands were shaking now, the box in his arms rattling softly. "I said, 'Buy us a house.'" "You never said us when it came to the money," I replied. "Only when it came to ownership." For a second, I saw the guy I fell for under all the ego. Hurt, afraid, feeling like the rug had been pulled out from under him. But right behind that was the look he'd had at his parents' table, confident that if he pushed hard enough, I'd fold. "I can't believe you did this," he said. "You made me look stupid in front of my whole family. They're all expecting us to move in together. What am I supposed to tell them?" "That you gave your girlfriend an ultimatum, and she didn't roll over," Mom said briskly. "That's what I'd go with." He ignored her, eyes locked on me. "Claire, I love you. I thought we were building a life together. If we were, I asked, why did it sound like I was the only one expected to pay for it? Silence. Somewhere behind him, his friend shifted his weight, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. Ryan's jaw worked. So that's it? He said finally. You bought a house and decided I don't get to be part of it? You decided that, I said, when you told me my love had a price tag and a deadline. His shoulders dropped, anger folding into something small and cold. Fine, he said. You want to be like this? We're done. Completely done. A week ago, that sentence would have shattered me. Right then, it just made something inside me unclench. All right, I said. His eyes widened, like he'd expected begging, tears, negotiation. That's it? Just all right? What do you want me to say? I asked. You just broke up with me because I wouldn't hand you a house. He glared at my mom. You two are insane. He turned, stomped back toward the truck. The box labeled kitchen. Fragile wobbled dangerously as he went down the steps. His friend gave me a quick, apologetic shrug and followed. We watched from the doorway as Ryan struggled with the U-Haul. He almost clipped my new mailbox, cursed, reversed, then finally managed to lurch away from the curb. Mom shut the door gently. Well, she said, that went about as expected. I let out a shaky laugh that sounded too close to a sob. Did I overdo it? She put the folder down and pulled me into a hug. You protected yourself, she said into my hair. That's all. The first voicemail came an hour later. Claire, it's Linda, his mom's voice quavered. What you did today was cruel. I let it go to voicemail. 8 minutes of guilt and accusation and how dare you. Then a text from an unknown number. You're such a liar. I wasted 2 years on you. Then another. You knew what I wanted. You played games. I sat on the floor between half-unpacked boxes, phone buzzing beside me like a trapped bee, and realized the house still smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. Not him. Around 11 that night, after 20-plus messages swinging between rage and tears, I finally replied. You gave me an ultimatum. I met it. We're done. You tricked me. He shot back almost immediately. I bought a house by Christmas, I wrote. Exactly like you demanded. Not my problem, you assumed things that were never agreed to. This isn't over, he sent. I blocked his number. The screen went silent. The house didn't. It creaked and settled around me, unfamiliar yet, like it was deciding whether to accept me. I lay awake a long time that night, listening to the quiet, wondering what exactly I'd just started. I woke up the next morning to 27 missed calls, 14 voicemails, and a 3-paragraph Facebook post from his sister that began with, Ladies, beware of men who pretend to build a future with you. I hadn't even had coffee yet. The post tagged nobody by name, but everyone knew. My phone buzzed nonstop with screenshots from mutual friends. Is this about you? OMG, Claire, what happened? Call me now. I didn't call anyone. Not yet. I made coffee, sat at my tiny dining table, still wobbly because I'd lost the Allen wrench, and watched the neighborhood wake up outside my window. It was peaceful, normal, almost enough to make me believe the mess unfolding on the internet wasn't real. But by the time I finished my mug, the story had spread to his college roommate, his mom's church group, and at least one community forum. And every single version painted me as the villain. Manipulative, calculating, financially abusive, a woman who weaponized money to embarrass a good man. His mother's post was the worst. 4 paragraphs about how I'd used Ryan, how I'd crushed his spirit, how he'd believed so deeply in our future. I'd never even met half the people commenting under it, but they had plenty to say about me. Meanwhile, the only person who hadn't contacted me directly was Ryan, which meant he was stewing, which meant something worse was coming. I gave the internet 2 hours to finish its tantrum. Then I posted one thing, just one, a screenshot of Ryan's ultimatum text, buy us a house by Christmas or I'm done. Below it, a collage of Zillow links he'd sent me, $500,000 properties, none of them within my budget. Then a snippet of one of his texts, I deserve a nice house, you can afford it. And finally, his Pinterest board, titled Our Future Master Suite, filled with $3,000 light fixtures and designer bedding. Caption, when someone demands you buy a house by Christmas, but never offers to contribute a single dollar to the down payment, closing costs, or mortgage. This is what partnership looks like to some people. I hit post. For 5 minutes, nothing. Then, wait, what? Hold on. He said that? Girl, you dodged a bullet. His sister's post vanished within an hour. His mom's post shut off comments. His roommate made his account private after someone asked him if he also expected his fiancée to buy him a house. I set my phone down and exhaled for what felt like the first time in 24 hours. But the peace didn't last. By late afternoon, the doorbell rang. I froze, peered through the peephole. Ryan stood on the porch, flanked by his parents. I couldn't see his face clearly, but the way he held his shoulders told me everything. Tight, defensive, ready to fight. I opened the door, but left the chain on. On. Claire, his dad said with a practiced diplomatic smile, we need to discuss the situation like adults. Not your daughter-in-law, I replied, and there's no situation to discuss. Ryan took a step forward, hands shoved into the pockets of his jacket. Claire, please. I brought my parents so we could talk rationally. No talking, I said. We're done. You made sure of that. His mother bristled. She invested 2 years into you. You owe her something. I stared at her. Ma'am, time isn't a down payment. Ryan snapped. Stop being difficult. Stop trying to force your way into my finances, I shot back. His dad held up his hands. Maybe there was some miscommunication. There wasn't, I said. He issued an ultimatum. I met it. We broke up. We didn't break up, Ryan protested. You're just upset. No, I said. You broke up with me. On the porch, in front of my mother, while carrying a box labeled Kitchen Fragile. His mom sucked in a breath. You're twisting things. And you're trespassing, I replied. All of you need to leave my porch. Ryan lunged forward instinctively, like he wanted to push past the door, and that's when I stepped back and let my voice turn cold. Take one more step, I said, and I'm calling the cops. His dad grabbed his arm. Let's go, he muttered. Now. This isn't over, Ryan said, pointing at me like a threat. Sure it is, I said, and closed the door in his face. I locked the deadbolt, then the chain, then leaned against the cool wood as adrenaline drained from my body. My hands were shaking, not because I was scared of him, but because I finally understood how much anger he was capable of when he didn't get what he felt he was owed. For the next few days, everything went quiet. Too quiet. I went to work, came home, unpacked more boxes, hung curtains. I tried to settle into my house, but my nerves wouldn't let me. Every time a car slowed outside, my stomach tightened. Every time a notification buzzed, I braced myself. Then, 3 nights after the porch confrontation, it happened. It was a Saturday. I had invited 3 friends over, small housewarming, pizza, and wine. The night was warm for December. We just started debating which terrible Christmas movie to put on when someone pounded on the front door. Not knocked. Pounded. We all looked at each other. You expecting someone else? My friend Jenna asked. I shook my head, throat tight. I checked the peephole. My blood went cold. Ryan stood on my porch. Drunk. Behind him, his sister and 2 girls I didn't recognize, all holding their phones. I opened the door, but blocked the entry. Leave, I said. No, he slurred, pushing forward. This is my house. It's not, I said. You need to go. He shoved me just enough to stumble inside. The kind of shove he'd deny later because it wasn't hard enough to look dramatic, but hard enough to cross a line. My friends stood up all at once. What are you doing? Jenna snapped. Ryan ignored her and staggered toward the stairs. Where's the bedroom? I want to see where you sleep without me. His sister stepped in front of my friends, smirking. She promised him this house, she said. He has every right to be here. No, he doesn't, I said. You're all trespassing. Get out. One of the unknown girls, blonde, younger, lifted her phone higher. This is going on TikTok, she announced. Everyone's going to see what a manipulative jerk you really are. Great, I said. Get this part too. I pointed to my other friend, who already had her phone recording. You're on camera forcing your way into my home. Ryan whipped around, face blotchy with anger. Stop making me the bad guy. You made yourself the bad guy, I said. Leave. Now. Blonde girl stepped closer, filming me like she was hunting for a viral moment. Smile, she sneered. You're trending tonight. My voice went flat. 30 seconds, I said, lifting my phone. Then I call 911. Ryan lunged up the first stair. I want to see the bedroom. 20, I said. He paused. His sister scoffed. You're overreacting. He's heartbroken. He's drunk, I said, and breaking the law. 10. Then 6. Then 4. Then I hit call. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, I said, staring at Ryan as he froze mid-step. 4 intoxicated individuals forced their way into my home and refused to leave. One is threatening to make false assault claims. My friends blocked the staircase as the group panicked. The cops showed up fast. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was just humiliating for them. The older officer looked exhausted as he asked Ryan the simplest question. Do you have any legal right to be inside this residence? Ryan swallowed. It's complicated. It's not, I said, handing over the paperwork showing my mother as the homeowner. The younger officer blinked. So you have no rights to this house? Ryan shook his head, small. And were you invited? The officer asked. Another small shake. The officer turned to the group. Time to leave. His sister tried arguing about love and future plans, but the officers didn't care. As they were escorted out, Ryan yelled, "I loved you!" over and over, slurring, tripping over his own feet. The blonde girl turned to me and hissed, "Just wait, TikTok is going to eat you alive." But she forgot one thing. I had the original footage, and her video showed them forcing their way in. After the door closed and the officers left, my living room fell into stunned silence. "Claire," Jenna whispered, "that was insane." "Yeah," I said, voice trembling. "You okay?" another friend asked. I nodded, but the truth was something else. I wasn't scared of Ryan. I was scared of how far he was willing to go. And I knew this wasn't the last escalation. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I thought, stupidly, that maybe things would calm down. Maybe the fiasco with the cops would shock him into stopping. Maybe his parents would finally tell him to cut it out. Maybe his sister would realize she'd just filmed herself trespassing and think twice. But entitlement doesn't work like that. People who believe they are owed something don't snap out of it. They double down. 9:12 a.m. Doorbell. I open my phone to the security camera view. Ryan. Standing on my porch. Again. But this time he was sober. Too sober. And he wasn't alone. His lawyer stood beside him. A tall man in an expensive charcoal suit holding a briefcase and wearing an expression that could best be described as bored domination. The face of someone who had already decided he was smarter than everyone else in the room. Behind them was his mother, tight lips and perfect makeup, and his sister, arms crossed like she was posing for a magazine spread called Righteous Fury Weekly. I didn't open the door. I cracked the window beside it instead. "That's far enough," I said. The lawyer stepped forward. "Ms. Bennett," he began smoothly, "we're here to resolve this matter amicably." "There is no matter," I replied. He smiled like someone talking to a child. "My client has concerns that your actions, specifically your unilateral property purchase, constitute deceptive behavior causing significant emotional distress." I blinked slowly. He continued, pulling a folder from his briefcase. "We intend to seek compensation." Ryan's mother folded her arms triumphantly. Ryan stood behind her, eyes puffy, staring at me with a mix of anger and pleading. "You're suing me?" I asked. The lawyer corrected me. "We're filing a claim. Small claims court. My client is requesting—" He flipped the folder open. $15,000 in damages. I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. It startled all of them. Even the lawyer blinked. "That's adorable," I said. "Get off my property." I started to close the window, but Ryan lurched forward. "You tricked me," he shouted. "You made me think this was our future. I moved my whole life for you." "You rented a U-Haul," I said. "You didn't even ask if you could move in." His mother scoffed. "You are heartless." His sister added, "You ruined him." I shut the window. Locked it. Then walked to the kitchen and dialed the number that had been on my fridge since the break-in. My lawyer. Her name was Patricia. She answered on the second ring. "Morning, honey," she said, voice warm. "What's on fire now?" "Ryan just showed up with a lawyer," I said. "They're suing me for $15,000. I could practically hear her smile. "Oh, that's rich. What's the claim?" "Emotional distress," I said, and apparently I deceived him by not buying him a house. Patricia actually laughed. "This is the dumbest lawsuit I've heard in 29 years. Congratulations." "That's not comforting," I muttered. "Sweetheart," she said, "this is great news." "Great?" "It tells me exactly what kind of case they're trying to build, and it means he's panicking, which means we get to file a restraining order today." I swallowed. "A restraining order?" "Yes," she said. "What he did last night alone qualifies, and now he's escalated. Don't worry, I'll walk you through everything." By noon, I was sitting across from her in her cozy office, floral curtains, framed degrees, a crocheted blanket over the back of her chair. She looked like a grandmother who baked cookies. But she had the quiet focus of a wolf. She gathered the police report, the video from the break-in, screenshots of texts, voicemails, social media posts, and notes from my workplace about his mother's harassment calls. Every time I started to apologize, "Sorry there's so much. Sorry this is messy," she'd wave a hand. "Stop that," she said. "He's the one who created this mess. You just documented it like a responsible adult." She filed the restraining order paperwork while I sat there, heart pounding. By the time I left her office, the temporary restraining order was officially filed and stamped. Ryan had to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, my car, and my workplace. He would be served within the next 48 hours. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car in the parking lot, gripping the steering wheel, trying to catch my breath. Somehow, despite everything, filing a restraining order made the situation feel real in a way nothing else had. This wasn't just drama or a messy breakup. This was a threat, and I was finally naming it. He was served that evening. I know because at 6:43 p.m., my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Wow, a restraining order? After everything I did for you? Then more messages coming fast. You seriously think I'm dangerous? This is your fault. You broke my heart, and now you're trying to ruin my life. I hope you're happy. I blocked the number. 10 minutes later, he texted my work email. 15 minutes after that, he texted my friend Jenna. Patricia submitted those messages to the court automatically. Then, as if on cue, my phone lit up again. Blocked call. Voicemail. Then another. 3 in total. Against my better judgment, I listened to one. It was his mother. Her voice was shaky with righteous indignation. You have gone too far this time, she cried. Ryan is devastated. He's barely eating. You've humiliated him and dragged our family through the mud. He moved back home because of you. Filing a restraining order? Do you know what that does to a man's reputation? You're cruel, Claire. Absolutely cruel. But don't worry. Everyone sees what you really are now. I deleted the voicemail and set the phone face down on the table. The house was quiet. Too quiet. But for the first time since this started, the quiet didn't feel like a storm waiting to break. It felt like a wall, a boundary. I wasn't trapped with his chaos anymore. He was trapped outside it. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Patricia. Restraining order, hearing scheduled for next week. Small claims case is the week after. We're going to bury them. Get some rest today. You'll need it. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, for the first time since Ryan's ultimatum over pot roast, I let myself breathe. Really breathe. And in that breath, a quiet understanding settled over me. He wasn't angry because I betrayed him. He was angry because I stopped being convenient. I stopped giving, stopped bending, stopped choosing peace over myself. He wanted the version of me who apologized for other people's discomfort. He didn't know what to do with the version who finally said no. The restraining order hearing came faster than I expected. 1 week. 7 days of silence broken only by the occasional update from Patricia, who seemed to be thriving in the chaos. Meanwhile, Ryan and his family went completely dark. No new posts, no new calls, no new messages. That kind of silence is never real. It's the quiet of people regrouping, rewriting the narrative, preparing their big public comeback. I braced myself, but nothing could have prepared me for the theater that awaited me in court. The courthouse waiting area smelled like old carpet and stress. A row of uncomfortable chairs lined the wall, and in one of them sat Ryan, with his mother, his sister, and the lawyer in the absurdly expensive charcoal suit. Ryan looked deflated. Hair neatly brushed, suit jacket slightly too big, hands clasped together so tightly his knuckles were white. His mother looked like she was auditioning for the role of angry widow in a soap opera. His sister sat ramrod straight, chin lifted, vibrating with righteous indignation. The lawyer? He looked bored. That bothered me more than anything. Patricia walked in 5 minutes later, wearing a soft pink sweater, gray slacks, and the same gentle smile she used to tell me she'd destroy them in court. Ready, honey? She asked. As I'll ever be. She patted my arm. Don't speak unless the judge asks you something directly, and don't react to anything they say. Let them dig their hole. We took our seats. Ryan didn't look at me. His mother absolutely did. If looks could kill, Patricia would be doing this hearing alone. Inside the courtroom, the judge, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, took his seat. Patricia nudged me. That's Judge Morrison. Fair, but blunt. This will go quickly. Ryan's lawyer stood first. Your Honor, he said, voice smooth as oil. My client has been deeply distressed by Ms. Bennett's sudden and excessive actions. He sought reconciliation. He attempted calm communication. Instead, she escalated to legal force without provocation. I watched the judge flip through the file Patricia had given him, thick enough to be a novella. The lawyer continued, My client acknowledges that emotions were high during their breakup, but nothing he did merits a restraining order. He was simply a man in pain trying to salvage a relationship. Patricia didn't move, not one twitch. The judge looked up. Are you finished? For now, the lawyer said confidently. Patricia rose. No theatrics, no sighs or gasps, just quiet, lethal clarity. Your Honor, she began, this is not a breakup spat. This is stalking. She clicked her pen once. On December 18th, the respondent issued his partner a financial ultimatum in front of witnesses. Buy a house by Christmas or the relationship ends. The judge nodded as he skimmed. On the 23rd, Patricia continued, he arrived uninvited at Ms. Bennett's home with a U-Haul, attempting to forcefully move in. When he was refused, he became hostile and ended the relationship. His mother let out a dramatic gasp. Patricia ignored her. On the 24th, the respondent and his parents arrived again, uninvited, attempting to pressure Ms. Bennett into resuming the relationship and granting him access to the home. That's not what his mother began. The judge raised one finger without looking up. She shut her mouth. On the 26th, Patricia said, sliding a flash drive forward, the respondent, his sister, and 2 intoxicated friends forcibly entered Ms. Bennett's home. There is police body cam footage and security video confirming no right of entry was granted. The judge paused his page flipping. That's quite bold, he murmured. Ryan shrank an inch in his seat. Patricia kept going. Following that, the respondent continued contacting Ms. Bennett from unknown numbers, contacting her workplace, appearing at locations he knew she frequented, and attempting to intimidate her into dropping legal action. She placed a printed police report on top of the stack. All of this is textbook stalking. The judge let out a slow breath. Counselor, he said to Ryan's lawyer, anything to add before I rule? Ryan's lawyer stood again, flustered now. Your Honor, these are misunderstandings fueled by heightened emotions. That is not what this looks like, the judge cut in sharply. His tone made the air in the room freeze. He turned to Ryan. Mr. Hayes, this is not reconciliation. This is aggressive, escalating harassment. Ryan's jaw trembled. His mother reached to squeeze his hand. He pulled it away. The judge continued. The restraining order is granted in full. 1 year minimum. No contact. No proximity. No social media communication. Direct or indirect, including messages through third parties. Violation will result in immediate arrest. His mother burst into loud theatrical sobs. The judge didn't even look at her. Take it outside, ma'am, he said flatly. She choked out another sob. Now, he added. She stood and shuffled out, making sure every sound from her throat was dramatically amplified. Ryan kept staring at the floor. His sister glared at me like I'd personally stolen their family heirlooms. Patricia touched my arm lightly. Breathe, honey. That was the hard part. It wasn't, though. The hard part was next week. The lawsuit. Outside the courtroom, before we could leave, Ryan's mom reappeared, eyes red, eyeliner smudged, and fury radiating off her in waves. She marched toward us. Patricia stepped in front of me instantly. No. I hope you're happy, his mother spat. You destroyed him. You destroyed our family. He loved you. Patricia kept her voice cool. Ma'am, step back. He loved her, she cried, and she humiliated him, turned everyone against him. I finally spoke quiet and tired. He didn't love me, I said. He loved the idea of my money. His mother's face twisted. You're a monster. Patricia leaned in just slightly, voice still gentle. Ma'am, walk away, right now. Ryan's mother stared at me like she wanted to claw my eyes out. Then she spun on her heel and stormed off. Patricia let out a breath. These people would make excellent reality TV. I laughed, a shaky, uneven sound, but it was still a laugh. Patricia placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Go home, she said softly. Rest. I'll see you in a week. I nodded. But as I walked to my car, one thought kept looping in my mind. If this was them before losing the lawsuit, what were they going to look like after? Civil court day arrived like a storm you can feel in your bones before the first drop hits the ground. I woke up early, not because of nerves, though I had plenty, but because I couldn't sleep. All night my brain replayed every scenario. What if the judge believed him? What if his lawyer twisted the story? What if they found some loophole I didn't know about? Patricia, in her usual zen-like clarity, had texted me that morning. Eat something, and wear something that feels like armor. No black. Judges hate theatrics. I wore navy, a soft blouse, simple earrings, hair pulled back. Not a warrior, but not a victim either. When I arrived at the courthouse, Ryan was already there. He was alone this time. No mother, no sister, no entourage, dripping dramatic energy everywhere. Just him and his lawyer. The charcoal suit peacock with a smooth voice and sharper ego. Ryan looked smaller. His eyes were rimmed red, lack of sleep or rehearsed despair, I couldn't tell. He didn't look at me, didn't even try. Patricia slid into the seat beside me like a grandmother, settling in for a church sermon she'd heard 100 times. You're fine, she whispered, and he's about to get humbled. Our case was called halfway through the docket. The courtroom was quiet, fluorescent lit, and buzzing with the low murmur of people waiting for their own disasters. We stepped forward. Ryan's lawyer began with the confidence of a man who believed he could talk a brick wall into agreeing with him. Your Honor, this case concerns deception, emotional manipulation, and the exploitation of my client's reasonable expectations in a long-term relationship. The judge raised an eyebrow. Ryan stared at the table. The lawyer continued, weaving the most dramatic fiction I'd ever heard. Mr. Hayes invested 2 years of his life into Ms. Bennett. She assured him repeatedly that they were building a future together. She encouraged him to plan for a shared home. Patricia wrote something down and slid the paper toward me. It said, "He's using words like future, promise, assured, expected, none of which are legal terms. This is going great." The lawyer kept going. And when the time came to act on that shared dream, Ms. Bennett intentionally deceived him. She purchased a home under her mother's name, strictly to prevent him from obtaining any ownership, despite knowing he believed they would live there together. He paused for dramatic effect. She caused him severe emotional distress. The judge looked unimpressed. "Counselor," he said, "what financial damages are you claiming were incurred?" $15,000, Your Honor. For? Therapy, lost wages, emotional labor. Emotional labor, the judge repeated flatly. Yes, the lawyer said, and the trauma of believing he was building a home, only to have that dream stolen. Patricia clicked her pen. Then she stood. "Your Honor," she said, "this case is, frankly, frivolous." She turned one page. First, no engagement, no cohabitation, no contract, verbal or written. The judge nodded. Second, the plaintiff contributed $0 toward any property discussions. Not a down payment, not an inspection fee, not even a $20 application fee. Patricia held up a stack of screenshots. And third, the plaintiff issued an ultimatum at a family dinner, demanding my client purchase a home by Christmas or the relationship was over. A low murmur rolled through the courtroom. Patricia passed the screenshots to the judge. He squinted down at them. "Buy us a house by Christmas," he read aloud, "or I'm done." He blinked slowly, then looked at Ryan. "That your text?" Ryan swallowed. I mean, yeah, but... Patricia stepped forward slightly. "Your Honor, this is not a case of deception. It's a case of entitlement. My client purchased a home legally, independently, with her own savings. She never promised the plaintiff co-ownership. She never invited him to move in. She never agreed to share equity." She flipped another page. In fact, the plaintiff's behavior following the breakup included harassment, forced entry, workplace interference, and stalking. She gestured toward the file, which Your Honor already acknowledged last week in granting a full restraining order. The entire room shifted. Ryan's lawyer visibly deflated. Patricia delivered the final blow with the calm sweetness of someone reading a bedtime story. "This lawsuit is simply another attempt to force proximity to my client and retain control over her finances and her life. It is not rooted in contract law, property law, or reality. We request immediate dismissal." The judge leaned back in his chair, silent for a long moment. Then he turned his gaze to Ryan. "Mr. Hayes," he said slowly, "you issued an ultimatum." Ryan's shoulders slumped. "You demanded she buy a house." He nodded once, stiffly. "And she did exactly that." Another nod. The judge placed the screenshots down and closed the file. "You do not get to retroactively add conditions you never specified, and you certainly do not get to sue someone because your ultimatum backfired." He looked at Ryan's lawyer. "Case dismissed." Ryan's lawyer opened his mouth. "Dismissed," the judge repeated, louder, final, already calling the next case. It was over. Just like that. Outside the courtroom, Ryan's mother was waiting, even though she hadn't been allowed inside. The restraining order applied to Ryan, not her. She marched straight toward me while Patricia subtly shifted into blocking position. "I hope," she hissed, "that you're satisfied with yourself." Patricia's voice was calm. "Ma'am, we're done here." "You destroyed him," she shouted. "You humiliated him. He loved you." I met her gaze. "He loved the idea of my wallet," I said quietly. "Not me." She flinched like I'd slapped her. Patricia gently nudged me away before she could say anything else. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's get you home." I expected to feel relieved, victorious, triumphant, something big. Instead, I felt empty, like someone had cracked open a very heavy door I'd been pushing against for months, maybe years, and suddenly all that pressure was gone. I went home, closed the door, sat on the floor of my living room, and cried, not because I regretted anything, but because surviving something is different from processing it. You can walk away from a fire long before your hands stop shaking. The next few days were quiet, peaceful. Then peaceful became normal, and normal became, slowly, gently, happy. I fixed the loose cabinet door, hung art in the hallway, bought a throw blanket that was far too expensive but made me smile every time I saw it. Let my mother bring over cookies I absolutely didn't need. My house started to smell less like fresh paint and legal stress, and more like home. Then one morning at the coffee shop, the barista, a kind-eyed guy named Matt, who always remembered my order, smiled and said, "Rough week?" I laughed. "Longer than a week. Oh. If you ever want to talk it out over dinner," he said, "I'm around." It surprised me, not the offer, but that I felt ready to say yes. We went out the following Friday. Light, easy, no pressure. I didn't tell him everything, not yet, but I told him enough. He laughed through half of it and shook his head. "Smart move," he said. "Putting the house in your mom's name. That's genius, actually." I smiled, for real this time. "I've learned to trust myself," I said. "Good," he replied. "You should." And I realized I had. Finally, truly. The deck my dad and I built was slightly crooked. The paint on the spare bedroom wasn't perfect, and my living room plants were dying more dramatically than my love life had. But it was mine, my home, my boundaries, my peace, my future. When I curled up on my couch that night, dog at my feet, house quiet and warm, one final thought settled in. He gave me a challenge, and I completed it, just not the way he expected.